Welcome to Preservation Oaks, the podcast where we invite you to step away from the bustle of everyday life. Settle in and relax, and take a moment to leave the familiar behind as we explore the hidden gems of America that preserve our cultural past. We call them our Preservation Oaks, and with each episode, we'll journey to a different corner of the country, where we'll discover the unique histories, landscapes, and communities that make up our nation. We'll visit with local museums, historical and genealogical societies. They are the stewards of these stories. They preserve the legacy of each place like precious pieces of fabric in a quilt that binds the freedom-loving, hardworking people in this country together. So, slow down, grab a beverage, open your mind, and let us take you on a tour of the fascinating histories and heartfelt traditions that lie just beyond the horizon. This is Preservation Oaks, where every story is a stitch in the fabric of our shared culture. Now, join our host, Sean Radcliff, as he uncovers another thread in the tapestry of America's heritage and what it takes to preserve it.
Hey, boogie down, everybody, because today we have a great program, and thanks for being here. For this episode, we greet Mr. Jim Vichich, the president of the Brighton Area Historical Society located in Brighton, Michigan. This incredible organization serves as the gateway to the rich history of Brighton and the surrounding townships of Livingston County, Michigan. The society is headquartered in the Lyon one-room schoolhouse, which was built in 1885 and served the needs of the area school children for more than 60 years. It also served as the Brighton Township Hall before becoming the headquarters for the Brighton Area Historical Society. The Lyon one-room schoolhouse has since been fully restored and is now a historical asset of the local community. It's a beautifully restored schoolhouse where visitors can experience what a 19th century school day was like, complete with a period-appropriate curriculum. It's an amazing way to bring history to life for all ages. They also showcase exhibits and dioramas in the iconic Old Town Hall, a stunning building with a fascinating past, which is now known as the CoBACH Center. That's CoBACH, which stands for City of Brighton Arts, Culture, and History Center. Brighton was first settled in 1832 by Maynard Maltby and originally named Ore Creek, after the stream running through the area. In 1838, the town adopted the name Brighton, becoming a village in 1867 and later a city in 1928. The Old Town Hall, or CoBACH Center, was built in 1879 by local contractor James Collette and has been a cornerstone of community life for nearly 150 years. Over the decades, it has served as a village council office, voting room, jail, firehouse, and even the birthplace of the local public library, which grew out of its modest weekend reading room. You'll also learn about the work the society has done and is doing to restore and maintain the old village cemetery, which they refer to as their outdoor museum of history. I think you'll enjoy this conversation with Jim Vichich as we explore Brighton's past, celebrate its preservation, and learn about the Society's efforts to keep history alive for future generations. By the way, our main platform is preservationoaks.podbean.com, but you can find us on nearly all podcast platforms as well as Rumble, Odyssey, and YouTube. So wherever you listen to the program, I appreciate it very much when you like, comment, follow, or subscribe. If you're interested in being a guest on our program, or if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. Hey, a big shout out to all of you who've been spreading the word about our program. Your support means the world to us. By helping us reach more people, you're shining a spotlight on the incredible heroes of Preservation Oaks and giving them the recognition they truly deserve. So thank you for being awesome. All right, that being said, let's get this show snapping. And now here's a short bio of today's guest, Jim Vichich, president of the Brighton Area Historical Society. Jim has been a dedicated advocate for preserving Brighton's rich history for nearly 3 decades. Born and raised in Endicott, New York, Jim's journey is one of curiosity, reinvention, and a passion for community. Proud graduate of the University of Notre Dame, Jim earned his Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering in 1974. His career began at General Motors, where he honed his skills and contributed to the automotive industry for 12 years. However, driven by a calling to make a difference, Jim pivoted careers, returning to college in 1986 to pursue his passion for education. He then spent 18 years inspiring students as a high school science teacher at Lakeland High School in the Huron Valley School District. Jim and his wife retired in 2007, celebrating a combined legacy of over 5 decades in education, his wife having served as a dedicated teacher in Brighton for 35 years. Together they raised their son Mike, and now enjoy the joys of grandparenthood with their 3 grandsons, Cameron, Henry, and Sebastian. Jim's fascination with history began in 1977 when he moved into an old home in Brighton, sparking a lifelong commitment to uncovering and preserving local stories. As a member of the Brighton Area Historical Society board since 1994 and its president since 2007, Jim has led numerous initiatives to celebrate and safeguard Brighton's heritage. Under his leadership, the Society has become a hub for historical exploration and education, offering innovative programs that bridge the past and present. Jim's vision for engaging younger generations in local history ensures that Brighton's legacy continues to inspire and inform the future. Whether through his professional endeavors or his tireless efforts with the Historical Society, Jim's life exemplifies the power of passion, community, and curiosity to shape lives and preserve stories for generations to come. All right? Welcome to the program, Jim.
Hey, Sean, thank you for having me, and thank you for having the Brighton Area Historical Society. We are happy to be here and share in this spotlight. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. How's your weather there today?
Well, today it's a cold day. It's about 20 degrees with biting wind. We have just a little bit of snow cover on the ground. The big snowstorm went south of us, but it's cold, and you know what? It's winter in Michigan. It's normal.
Yep. Yeah, they call that winter, not climate change.
That's right.
So what inspired you to settle in Brighton, or has your family been here for generations?
Well, when I relocated, after college, I relocated to Southeast Michigan, and I kind of listened to a lot of the engineers that I was working with, hearing what they had to say about where they lived in that. And what I picked up from that is that these are a lot of senior engineers that had cottages in some of the outlying areas of Michigan, and they spent all their time on weekends driving to and from the cottages and cutting grass on the weekends. So I thought, you know what? I want to get a rural place in the country so that I still have the ruralness on the weekends, and I don't have to drive, 3 hours to the north and 3 hours to the south. And you know what? Brighton, Michigan fit my bill.
I think that's a perfect choice. Absolutely. I would have done the same thing. How would you describe the charm and character of Brighton?
Well, Brighton is very unique, and it's recognized by people from all over the state as being unique. I've traveled to the Northeast and visited the cute little towns of New England, and Brighton kind of reminds me of that community. You have a mill pond. Well, we used to have a gazebo. We have a small amphitheater there now. That's called the Amp. But it's just a cute, quaint town. And Brighton being located on the main road between Detroit and Lansing, before expressways, there's all kind of traffic that used to stop there and enjoy some of these things, including some restaurants and that.
Very cool. Very cool. What's the story behind Brighton's mill pond and its beautiful surrounding park?
Well, the mill pond actually was made for a mill. Back in 1838, a man by the name of Orville Quackenbush decided that he wanted to build a mill, a grain mill in Brighton. And the reason for that is because Brighton had flowing water. The stream that goes through the community is called Ore Creek. And Ore Creek could be dammed up, so that you could get enough water drop to be able to spin a water wheel that would turn an upper stone of a grinding mill where grain would be ground up so that people could make flour in that and make bread. And that's kind of the basis for the community.
Wow. Real nice place. If you go on your map app and take a look at Brighton, Michigan, guys, Brighton, you'll see it's a beautiful town. Very beautiful. What role has Brighton played in Michigan's broader history over the years?
Well, Brighton's kind of been a middle place. And with that, let me just kind of hit the lay of the land so that people that are outside the area, if they're not looking at Google and that, they kind of know where we're talking about. And this is what I will call a kinetic exercise. Take your left hand and place it palm down on the table. Your left hand represents actually Michigan's lower peninsula. Michigan is made up of two peninsulas, the lower peninsula and the upper peninsula. And your hand lying down on that table fits the picture of the lower peninsula. And it's called the mitten of Michigan. And where you have your thumb, we call that in Michigan the thumb of Michigan. And if you go to the base of your thumb and go over to just below the knuckle of your little finger and draw a line across there, there's an important road that goes across the state that has given Michigan a whole lot of growth, and that is called Grand River Road. But down at the right side, at the base of your thumb, we're going to put a big D. That is where Detroit is found. And Detroit was the capital for many years, and they moved the capital from Detroit to the middle of the state. So if we have a line going from Detroit over to below our little finger knuckle, in the very middle of that line, east to west, we have the city called Lansing. And Lansing was established in 1847 because, from what I understand, the leaders of the state wanted to get the capital out of Detroit because most people don't know this. Just south of Detroit is Windsor, Ontario, Canada.
Ah.
And we had just finished a war with Great Britain called the War of 1812. So they wanted the capital removed. So that's kind of a cute fact there for people that don't know. But if we look at the state, between Detroit and Lansing, we have Brighton. It's located right between the two on that line. And it's a wonderful location. So Brighton is kind of a bedroom community between Lansing, Ann Arbor, and Detroit. And the expressways, that's what brought me to Brighton, because I was able, as a GM employee, to go to many different factories or offices all over Southeast Michigan because of the expressways that tied these communities together.
Oh, got it. Thank you for explaining that.
In school, we teach the kids the acronym HOMES, and that stands for the lakes. Home, H for Huron,
Yeah.
O for Ontario, M for Michigan, E for Erie, and S for Superior.
Yeah.
Now you're all informed on the Great Lakes and homes.
That is a great that's a great exercise, Jim. I really appreciate you doing that because I've tried to remember them all and I'm always missing one.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Now, what's the story behind Brighton's establishment and which significant events have played a crucial role in its development?
Well, that's a very interesting question because Brighton has always been located kind of at the center of things. And because of that proximity, it was always involved in transportation. So, I had mentioned about, where Detroit was located and that road called Grand River Road that ran across the state of Michigan. And that used to be an Indian trail. It used to be called Grand River Indian Trail. And the reason the Indians used it is because the animals followed it. So it was basically high and dry ground. A lot of southeast Michigan, you had marshes and swamps back in the early days. And so the animals weren't stupid. They would run on the dry ground. And of course, the Indians would, follow them. Well, that little path from human feet ended up becoming the pathway for new settlers coming from New York in the 1820s with the opening of the Erie Canal in 1825. That allowed people from the east to make it to the Midwest, because before that they could not get over the Appalachian Mountains. So when the Erie Canal opened in 1825, that brought a lot of people out to Michigan because they'd come out to Buffalo and then catch a steamer across the Great Lakes and unload in Detroit. So that's kind of the key thing with Grand River Avenue. So what happened is that people transiting out from Detroit going west came to this opening in the woods and say, hey, there's water flowing here, and it's a nice looking environment. The soil is rich, and let's establish a community here. And that was Brighton when it was first established in the early 1830s. And that's where, John Quackenbush ended up making his mill. And that mill was very important because farmers, they raise grain, but the grain itself is not usable. You can't make flour out of it. You have to get it ground.
Yeah.
So Brighton was about, driving-wise, a half hour away from Ann Arbor and a half hour away from Farmington Hills. However, back in those days, that was a 7-day round trip by wagon. So farmers would have to take their grains into the Ann Arbor or into Farmington Hills and have it ground. Well, when they did that, they were away from their home for a long period of time, which was very dangerous, allowing your wife and children to be home alone. And so that grain mill, I think, helped cement the early business of Brighton because it was a place where farmers could establish their homes and not have to leave to sell their product. Well, after a period of time, the Iron Horse came out to Brighton in 1871. We had a railroad company called the Père Marquette, and it arrived in Brighton in 1871. And now farmers, merchants had a way to bring goods into the city, into the county, and they had a way to sell the goods. They didn't have to take the plank road into Detroit on their wagon. The train could do all that. So Brighton became pretty important because of the location of the train. So initially we had, because of the water in the mill, secondarily we had the train. Well, if we go on another 80 years, or let's just go on 50 years, there were two major roads paved and made very businesslike, and that was Grand River Road and a road that ran north and south from Ann Arbor to Flint. So again, Brighton is at the very center where those two roads intersected. Well, those roads ended up giving guidance to the interstate system that came in the 1950s. And the interstate system, I-96, which is the main road from Detroit to the west, follows Grand River Avenue. And then there's a north-south expressway called US 23. And both of those intersect in Brighton. So once again, Brighton is chosen to be the intersection point of all this traffic. And because of that, businesses located here because for the same reason. They could move people and, it was a pretty location. Why wouldn't anybody live in Brighton? So to me, that's the history of why Brighton has succeeded where other towns haven't, because they did not have the three critical things being water, a mill, and the interstate highways.
Well, that's fantastic. Whoever ran that mill, I hope they made a lot of money.
Well, I don't know. The mill stood until business ended about 1920, and the mill was torn down right after the Second War. And strange thing is, the mill was purchased by Henry Ford because, I don't know if you're aware of it, but Henry Ford was pretty much into buying old mills and generating electricity.
Oh.
And his goal was to generate electricity from the water coming off this mill. However, Henry Ford died in 1947. And I think when he died, all the shareholders and the board of directors said, let's forget about making electricity from old mills. Let's focus on making cars. So the mill was torn down.
Oh, I'll be darned. Well, that's too bad. That's great, great legacy for Brighton. Wow. Thanks, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share some intriguing but often overlooked stories from your area that your organization focuses on? Yeah.
So in Brighton, we, the Historical Society, kind of manage three facilities. One is the CoBACH Center, CoBACH. It stands for the City of Brighton Arts, Culture, and History Center. That's owned by the City of Brighton, and they allow the Historical Society and the Art Guild to operate out of there. And our goal is to be ambassadors. We're to sell the community, sell people on Brighton and all these cultural events. The second thing we have is the Lyon Schoolhouse, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That is a an 1885 one-room schoolhouse that is the home of the Historical Society. And, that used to be a log school when it was built in 1842. When people first arrived in Brighton, they brought values with them, and one of the values was education and religion. So, a school was put up, and that school served multiple purposes, served as a place of worship, too. Third place that we take care of is what's called the Old Village Cemetery. And this cemetery is run by the city of Brighton today. And the first burial there was in 1837, or was it 1838? There's a story there because this cemetery used to be closed to the public in the sense that if you walked around the cemetery, you couldn't see into it because all the brush and debris growing around its perimeter. It was a great place for high school kids to sneak in and have privacy. In about 2009, we approached the city of Brighton asking if we can do something to restore the honor and dignity of those grounds. And the city manager thought, hey, this is a pretty good idea. And he said, well, you guys got to get training, though, because we want to make sure you know what you're doing. And we said we would get training. And so the story goes on that in 2009, for about 4 springs, when I say 4 springs, the first Saturday in May, there would be a cleanup. And for the first 4 years, this cleanup was nothing more than chainsaws ripping through trees and debris and everything that had grown up over, 100 plus years around the perimeter. And, we had some very good helpers there with chains. When men know that chainsaws are needed, they show up. Probably couldn't get a donation out of them, but boy, they'd like to operate their chainsaws. So they operated the chainsaws and got the perimeter of the cemetery cleaned up pretty well. Well, we then decided let's talk to the city manager again and see if we can take the next step and get all these broken headstones rebuilt. Now, most of the headstones in the cemetery in 2012 are a type that are called a tablet, which kind of looks like a book standing up. If you stood a book up on a table, that's a tablet headstone.
Yeah.
And every one of those was snapped, broken.
Mm-hmm.
Vandalism, yes. Some maybe by weather, maybe some by old age. And so we started a program for rebuilding headstones. So we got training. But one of the things that bothered us right at the get-go is that we could not find the headstone of the man who was first buried there. His name was Warden. And so consequently, the city and the DDA, they decided that, we need more parking in downtown Brighton. So they decided to build a parking lot along the east side of the cemetery. In that process, they had to cut out all these wasted trees and debris that's growing on the edge of the cemetery. And at that time, I asked the man who was running the excavator, hey, could you drag your bucket down the bank here? Because the bank was nothing but debris. Mm. He said, sure. I said, we're looking for headstones. There may be some headstones lying in there. Well, sure enough, he brought up the first headstone of the man that we've been missing. And it came up in 3 pieces, which, at that time, I thought, son of a gun, it got broken in 3. And so what we then decided to do, we, the Historical Society, is that we had talked to the city manager, Brighton, and we got approval. And so we got trained. And that is the program that started with rebuilding all the broken headstones in the cemetery. And up to today, we have finished the 12-year project this past year of rebuilding the broken headstones.
Oh, nice.
And the number that have been rebuilt is amazing. It's 170 that were broken lying in the dirt that are now standing tall. And in addition to that 170, there were over 240 that were leaning because of the frost and thaw cycle that we go through in a northern climate. So they were leaning. So we dug all those out, put gravel underneath them, about 6 inches of gravel, and reset them again vertically. So when you visit the cemetery today, it is a spectacular place. It's beautiful. Right. And it's all the work of many volunteers, the Historical Society, help from the city's DPW group. Whenever we needed some heavy lifting, they were there. And I can't compliment the people enough that have jumped in to help make this cemetery a very respectful and a place of dignity.
Jim,
We got an award from the state of Michigan on it for being an outstanding site of recognition for this type of work. So, yeah, we're all very proud of that. And we want to do the best that we can.
Yeah.
We want these headstones to look fantastic, because one of the things that I always tell our government folks is that we have to fix these headstones. A lot of the people that are buried in the cemeteries are just good common people. They paid their taxes, they raised their family, went to church, and they died. These headstones, for most of these people, is the only thing that records their existence on our planet, because they weren't famous for doing anything. They were just good common people. So when I give that tale, it causes a lot of people to think about, the importance of headstones and that. So that's why we hold the headstone so critical, because that is a reflection of somebody's life.
I bet the families in the communities just love you guys.
Yeah, we've gotten many compliments. This cemetery that we're speaking of, Old Village Cemetery, is basically a closed cemetery.
Okay.
There are no more new burials there. And there haven't been really new burials there since the early 1900s. And so, we put stuff on, there's a website called Find the Grave, where you can get all kind of information on cemeteries and the headstones that are there. And that's done by just ordinary people that go out and take pictures and record information. And because of the postings that we've put up, we put them on Facebook, put them in our newsletter, we've gotten a substantial number of thank yous with some money attached for doing a fine job. I don't know what our family would have done without you, because we were worried that the headstone was going to disintegrate just laying in the ground in the next 50, 60 years. And now it's standing tall and proud. So, many people across the country that have family in Brighton, they've learned about it, they've gone online and seen it, and plus the local people. To us, this Old Village Cemetery is our outdoor museum of history.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It tells the story of the rest of the community. And so we have tours through the cemetery that the Historical Society provides that tells the rest of the story of these people, and also of the Civil War veterans buried there. There's a number of them. There's like 45 Civil War veterans buried there. And let me just put the plug in for this, is that there's an organization called the Quester Society, Questor, and they work with preservation of different facilities and that. So what they did is that their president of Michigan, who lives in our community, her name is Judith Cobley, she did research on all these 45 Civil War veterans and put together this booklet that the Quester organization sponsored. Now, this booklet is waterproof paper and waterproof ink, and the pages can't be torn. I mean, these pamphlets were about $30 a piece that the Questers paid for. And so when you come up to the main entrance of the Old Village Cemetery, there's like a mailbox on the right side of it. And you open up that mailbox and pop out one of these booklets and go for a walk. And each Civil War soldier's gravesite has a special marker that has a number on it that coincides to the self-guided walking tour of this booklet. And it's very popular. People buy that book. We sell it, for $20. It's one of the things that we sell. But again, it's just, when you get people visiting the cemetery, you are doing several things. You're bringing respect to your community.
Yeah.
But if you can get young kids in there, not only are you bringing respect, but when those kids get up to those challenging years of potentially dealing with vandalism, they stop and say, no, we're not going to do it here, because we've learned that that is a place of respect. And so since we've rebuilt the cemetery and the headstones, we've only had like one incidence of vandalism. And I don't know if it was vandalism on purpose or if it just was an accident. So that's something everybody needs to consider, is that if you got problems with vandalism in cemeteries, work on making those cemeteries look nice and do educational programs for kids, students, Cub Scouts. Have cleanup programs where people come in and they learn about that cemetery. And you know what? That process works.
Yeah, because if if the kids see that the community doesn't even care about that cemetery and just lets it go to waste, then, what does it matter if they come in and vandalize it, right?
Yeah. So this cemetery is a very beautiful cemetery. It's sitting adjacent to our mill pond, and it's up above the mill pond by about 12 feet. And of course, you have very mature trees there. And so in the summertime, you got a nice canopy of green trees. You have the water shimmering from the sun hitting the water. And it's a beautiful, reflective place. And you know what? We see teenagers just go in there, walk around, sit down on the ground, talk to one another because it's a private place, and walk out. And you know what? No damage. It's very proud, very gratifying.
Nice. Now that mill pond, isn't that the pond that's right next to the CoBACH Center?
It is, yeah. The mill
Yeah.
pond, yeah, that mill pond is right next to the CoBACH Center and extends back, probably 3/4 of a mile. And along the mill pond, the city fathers and mothers did a great project in making a boardwalk that goes along the mill pond. And so the mill pond is just a wonderful place for residents to visit, for tourists to visit, because, of course, we have our outdoor museum of history there, the village cemetery, but we also have the amp there, which is the former gazebo where they have concerts. There are coffee shops along it.
Nice.
There is a beautiful structure for children to play in. It's called Imagination Station, and it is just a wholesome family place, and that's part of what downtown Brighton is known for. If I could tell you about ice harvesting. Back in the 1880s, this is a strange fact that I've learned, is that ice harvesting was like the second largest industry in the United States, and that was behind forestry. And ice harvesting is something that took place in the northern climates only, but any body of water, whether it be a pond, a lake, a river, if it's in the northern climate and you had cold weather, that ice would freeze. They would saw the ice, with big saws originally, and then they would float these big chunks of ice to the nearby ice house. And an ice house was a building that I would just, for purposes of description, describe it as a large, large barn. And it had hollow walls that were usually insulated with sawdust. And you'd have like an escalator that would take that big ice block and take it up from the pond up to the level. They would store them from ground level going up tall, going up height-wise. So there were a number of men that worked in the ice house with these big long poles that had a steel tip on the end that were called pikes, Pikes. And they would move these big blocks of ice around in the ice house. And over the course of the winter, typically in January, February would be their season for doing this, they would have these ice houses filled totally up to the top. And then in summertime, they would be bleeding those ice blocks out of there and using them for refrigeration in restaurants and homes and that. And in our area of Brighton, a lot of that ice went back to Detroit for use in restaurants and hotels and that. Another part of Brighton, a different railroad system came there and took the ice down to Toledo, Ohio. So ice harvesting was a big deal. And one of the important things that most people don't know is that farmers in wintertime, they don't have any income. And, they're sitting around thinking about what they have to repair, what they have to fix. But when you had ice harvesting, now they had a job for making money during those wintertime hours.
All right.
Although it a hazardous job, just simply because there are people that had, various arms and legs pinched in between these blocks of ice that could weigh anywhere from 200 to 300 pounds as they were being, slid around or skidded around. And one of the questions that comes up is, well, how did these blocks of ice not freeze on top of one another? Well, one of the things that they use to put between the layers is sawdust or what's called marsh grass. And so they would cut that off and throw it on top, and they would then, as summertime comes, they would peel off one layer at a time. And so that's how people had ice year round. But this was a big industry because a lot of this ice, especially over in New York, because they're right on the seacoast, you have the Finger Lakes and you have the Hudson River and those waterways going north, that ice would go on steamers that would take it to South America and Africa.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Can you believe that?
No.
This was big business. And so they would take these blocks of ice, fill up the hold of a ship, and take them to South America or to Africa to use for refrigeration.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
So obviously that industry died with Henry Ford and George Westinghouse and the advent of electricity and that. But, it had its heyday in the 1880s. And in our area here, most of the ice became from refrigeration in the 1920s and 30s.
Wow. I'm going to do some research on that. Ice boats to South America.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and again, that came out of the New York, Boston area.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think we should take a break, Jim.
Now I can take a deep breath and relax for a few minutes.
Listeners, we'll be right back after an important message about supporting the Brighton Area Historical Society with your thoughtful donations.
What if you could help preserve the rich stories and traditions of Brighton, Michigan for future generations? What if your generosity could bring history to life and inspire countless visitors to explore the roots of this vibrant community? At the Brighton Area Historical Society, every donation is more than a financial gift. It's an investment in preserving Brighton's legacy. The Historical Society works tirelessly to safeguard local history through restoration, education, and exhibits. From the carefully curated displays to restoration of the Old Village Cemetery, or preserving the historic Lyon one-room schoolhouse, this organization ensures Brighton's past remains alive and accessible. But none of this is possible without support from people like you. Your donations, big or small, help to protect irreplaceable artifacts, maintain the Old Village Cemetery, and support educational programs that engage children, families, and history enthusiasts. Imagine a school field trip where young minds light up with curiosity, or a local exhibit that brings neighbors together to share their stories. With your support, these moments are possible. Donating is simple. Visit the website at BrightonAreaHistorical.com and click on Support to make a secure online contribution. Prefer a personal touch? Mail your donation to P.O. Box 481, Brighton, Michigan, for 8116 or call 810-250-7276 to learn more about how your support can make a difference. Do you have a passion for local history? Consider becoming a sustaining donor or making a legacy gift to ensure Brighton's stories continue to inspire for generations to come. Every dollar you give supports meaningful work, restoring the past, educating the present, and enriching the future.
With your help, the Brighton Area Historical Society can continue to serve as the heartbeat of Brighton's heritage. Follow us on Facebook at Brighton Area Historical Society to see how your contributions are making an impact. Or better yet, stop by any of our 3 locations to see your donations in action. Join the mission. Become a part of Brighton's history. Donate today and help the Brighton Area Historical Society preserve what matters most, our shared history and memories.
The Brighton Area Historical Society. Preserving the past, educating the present, and inspiring the future, thanks to the generosity of supporters like you.
Chicken honey, wonderful food for you.
Fried chicken and hickory barbecue.
Piping hot,
Handy home delivery.
quick as a bunny. Catering service at Chicken Honey. Carry out service too.
Chicken Honey is open 6 days a week to welcome you.
You're always welcome.
So quick as a bunny, call Chicken Honey. Phone 50006
In the city, enjoy Chicken Honey. Call Chicken Honey right now. So quick as a bunny, call Chicken Honey.
Phone 50006
In the city.
for carry-out service right on the dot.
Catering service right on the spot.
Quick home delivery, piping hot.
Just as you want it, enjoy Chicken Honey. Call Chicken Honey right now.
Hello there, this is Betsy Roots. I'm the museum educator at the Marquette Regional History Center. History isn't boring when you listen to Preservation Oaks with Sean Radcliff. Trust me, it's epic.
Hi, I'm Holly Cordell, the Executive Director at the Friends of Historic Meridian. You're tuned in to Preservation Oaks with Sean Radcliff, your gateway to history.
I'm Chrissy Norris, and I'm the President and Curator of the Tompkins Center Historical Society, and I never miss an episode of Preservation Oaks with Sean Radcliff. Tune in and explore our country with us.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Thomas Radcliff, and we're here today with Jim Vichich from the Brighton Area Historical Society located in Brighton, Michigan. Jim, let's pick up where we left off. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for the break, Sean. I'm ready. Ice harvesting that we were just talking about, at the CoBACH Center, we had a wonderful exhibit on ice harvesting. It was back in about 2012. And in making that such a great exhibit, one of the things that we were fortunate to be able to borrow was some of the old equipment for cutting ice. And there is a wonderful museum in Port Huron, Michigan on ice harvesting. And if anybody's ever interested in going there, look them up online. It's called the Knowlton, Knowlton Museum of Ice Harvesting. And it is just wonderful. And they gave us on loan some different products of old ice cutting and old refrigerators. You remember, old refrigerators were called ice boxes.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because it would look like a refrigerator size-wise, but at the top of it, you'd put a big block of ice. And of course, cold air would drop and water would drop as it melts. So it had channels for collecting water. And then you had the man or woman that came around delivering ice to all the neighborhoods, because that was important, especially in the summertime. In the wintertime, people could put stuff outside and partially bury it in snow and that. But in the summertime, you're challenged by that. So ice harvesting was really a cool exhibit that we had. And that's where I learned a lot about ice harvesting. Even though I'm from, upstate New York, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's very cool. What an industry. Wow.
Yeah. And one of the last things I wanted to mention back when we were talking about the cemetery, the old village cemetery, I wanted people to have an idea of the time requirements. The labor hours for restoring the headstones was 3,500 hours.
Whoa.
And
that's 170 stones.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And 240 that were lifted out and reset. And then we had 2,300 hours. That was involved in those first 4 years of cleaning up the cemetery, cutting down trees, and every year having a spring cleanup. So altogether, we're up to about 5,800 hours. Now, I want you to think about what a labor rate would be.
Mhm.
Well, let's use a labor rate of just $50. $50 won't get you anybody to your house. And if you get somebody to your house for $50, it's probably worthwhile not to have them come into your house.
Yeah.
But if you look at that, 5,800 hours times $50 an hour, that's $290,000.
Whoa.
And see, cities, municipalities, they don't have money for repairing headstones. They barely have enough money to keep grass growing and keeping it cut in cemeteries. So it's up to the citizens to mount the effort. It's up for historical societies to say, get involved. We want to do this. Not an easy task. Again, as I would say, is that I was probably the youngest person of this group. And we have a bunch of people now that have done this that are in their late 80s and some in the early 90s. So you definitely want to have a good team for doing this. And we had a team of typically 12 to 18 men and women. And we would meet on the fourth Monday of the summer months. And it's always the fourth Monday. So because one of the problems with seniors is they always have doctor visits. Well,
Right.
if you can get them to know that the fourth Monday of the month is what we're going to do, this project, always the fourth Monday, they can schedule their doctor appointments and avoid that. So that's kind of what we use, the fourth Monday. So we're starting off on another cemetery in the spring. And again, we're going to be using that fourth Monday for the same type of reasoning on that.
Oh, that's very cool. Thank you. Now, Jim, what led to the establishment of the Brighton Area Historical Society, and what formative experiences were pivotal in its early development?
That's a really interesting question because the CoBACH building, the City of Brighton Arts, Culture, and History Center, that building was built in 1879 as the Old Town Hall. Now, to describe it in appearance for the listeners, it was a two-story brick building. It originally had a flat roof with a cupola on the top. And this was the home of the fire station. And this was the home of city council. This is where court took place. And also churches that if they had a social, they would have the social on the second floor. Now, I had mentioned about this building having a flat roof because within 2 years they learned something, that flat roofs in the north don't work.
Right. That's right.
They put a pitch on it and took care of the leaky roofs. You know what? We still deal with flat roofs in the north and leaky roofs. Oh, well, I guess that allows somebody to have a job fixing it. But so the building that we're talking about, the Old Town Hall, the CoBACH Center, that was being discussed by the city fathers in the 1980s, early 80s, that maybe we need to tear it down. Get rid of that old looking building and, put something in there that looks better and all that stuff. Well, the people of Brighton said no. And they decided we're going to form the Historical Society and we are going to fight the city on this because there's no way that we want that. It's a very classic, old style looking building. It's a very attractive building. And everybody was, I would say, in love with it. It had memories because it also served as the library. It served as the firehouse. They relocated the firehouse to a new one. They eventually relocated the library to a new one, but everybody had memories of that. So because of that, they formed the Brighton Area Historical Society in 1981. And the original founder, Mary Messerschmidt, can take the credit for that because she kind of got everybody pulled together and moving forward with that project.
Okay.
And so the city said, yeah, I guess we shouldn't. And so the building has blasted, and it was city offices. It has been leased out. Right now, 3 nonprofits, being the Historical Society, the Brighton Art Guild, and Livingston Players, make their home there. And that's been our home since 2009. And we put on cultural exhibits there. The art group has classes there. And we've put on many, many different exhibits there that showcase our history, what people did, the churches, different organizations. everything that you would associate with a community, that's what we do at the CoBACH Center. We put on exhibits. And they stay up for about 2 months, and then they come down, and then a new one goes up. So that's kind of where the Historical Society got its basis.
That's fantastic. That's a fantastic start to your historical society. I hope that building lasts for centuries to come.
Yeah, really. It's very, very pretty. And, you have a bell tower on the top. However, the bell was removed during World War II.
Yeah.
And hasn't gone back up there. And it's probably just as well, because that a bell that's quite heavy.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, that's our pride and joy in Brighton, the Old Town Hall.
Thank you for that, Jim. Now, I'd like to provide listeners with the contact information for the organization. Their website is brightonareahistorical.com. You can find them on Facebook at Brighton Area Historical Society. Their phone number is 810-250-7276. You can email them at info@brightonareahistorical.com. You can mail them a letter at P.O. Box 481, Brighton, Michigan 48116. Their headquarters, the Lyon one-room schoolhouse, is located at 11455 Buno Road, Brighton, Michigan 48114. Their exhibit space is the CoBACH Center, and that's at 202 West Main Street, Brighton, Michigan 48116. It's actually one of their exhibit spaces. The other one is the Lyon one-room schoolhouse. Then there's their outdoor museum of history, which is the Old Village Cemetery located at 200 West St. Paul Street, Brighton, Michigan 48116. That sound right, Jim?
Yeah, you got it there. And maybe I could say a few words about the Lyon School at this point, and then we'll kind of have those three areas tied in there.
That'd be great.
The Lyon Schoolhouse received its name, and again, it's Lyon, Lyon, received its name because back in 1840, the farm in this area was the Lyon Farm, same spelling. So whenever a farmer gave an acre or two of property for a school, that school always assumed that farmer's last name. So in this case, it's the Lyon School. And the Lyon School was built in 1842, and it was built as a log school. Again, I had mentioned earlier that there were two things that were critical with the new people coming to Michigan from the east, many from New York, Massachusetts. The two critical things were religion and education. So the school was built as a log school, and the log school survived until 1885. And then the parents of the students figured out that that building wasn't in very good shape. As you can imagine, a log school not having probably windows, being a dirt floor,
Yeah.
Probably log benches,
Termites.
and probably be shallow in height. And so the Lyon School was then built in 1885, and that served the children in the area up till 1957. And in 57, the school closed down because Michigan had passed a law saying that all these one-room schoolhouses needed to incorporate with a local city school because of their belief that the kids would get a better curriculum at a larger school that had more kids where you'd have better trained teachers. So that school closed in 1857. And then in 1961, it became the Brighton Township Hall. And Brighton Township Hall, they put an addition on the back of it that is basically a concrete room. You have concrete blocks, you have a concrete ceiling, you have a concrete floor. And that's where they kept their financial records. Well, the township moved out in 1983, thereabouts. And then they, with some good salesmanship from one of their members who was a clerk, the building was preserved. The actual board members of the township wanted to tear it down because they thought they could sell it for, a lot for a builder to put a home on. But this woman who said, no way, her name is Norma Pless, and she's still one of our members. She's 93, and she was a township clerk, and she fought it and got them to agree to preserve the township hall,
Wow.
the Lyon Schoolhouse. And so today, we have this beautiful one-room schoolhouse, and, we have at the end of it, at the north end of it, we have a middle room, which is kind of a mini museum room that's separate from the school classroom. And then beyond that is this concrete block room that the township built. And that's where we keep all our financial records, all our archives, everything permanent, because it's basically a fireproof room. And it's just wonderful for us. So the Lyon one-room schoolhouse is used by children. They come from elementary school for a third grade curriculum where they learn about community. And what's really cute is that typically the girls all dress up in old time clothing.
Yeah.
The boys are, of course, too cool to do that. What you'll see of the boys, they'll roll up their sleeves. And, I usually put on a talk for about 10 minutes with them, telling them about the old schoolhouse, where it's located, how it operated, all the information that the younger generation has no idea about. But that's the Lyon Schoolhouse. And it's important it was saved. And it's a showcase of the community, in my opinion.
Now, Jim, did you capture Norma's oral interview at all?
Yes, I have oral interview for Norma and her brother Pete, who also went to the school. Yeah, we have oral history on those folks. And oral histories are just fantastic because it gives you a different picture of time from these folks that have been there. So yeah, oral history is good.
Now, Jim, how does your organization fulfill its role in the community, and what are the primary goals for 2025?
Well, the goals in the society, the goals in the community is to share information. And we do that by programming that and putting on exhibits. Some of the things that we do is that we put on presentations to the senior centers. We put on presentations to the senior living places, the assisted living places, and also hit local church groups. Everybody's always interested in history. And at the senior center, well, not the senior centers, but at the assisted living places, because a lot of people end up settling in Brighton because they have children here and grandchildren. But they may live at an assisted living place. They have no idea of what the town is known for. They know about some of the restaurants and that. And so, we enjoy putting on those presentations and sharing that. And it's usually a PowerPoint presentation with pictures because, pictures, it's 1,000 words that you can get out of a picture there. So that's one of the things that we really enjoy.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Jim, can you highlight any exciting upcoming activities or exhibitions that you believe will capture the community's interest?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask because right now at the CoBACH Center, our new exhibit is ready to open, and it's titled Memories of Island Lake. And Island Lake is a lake that's just slightly east of Brighton, and it was a lake that had everything going on its shores. And so it's a really interesting exhibit, and that'll be up probably for January and February and maybe part of March. But some great pictures there. But when we talk about, things that are going on, we also, usually the end of April, the end of May, we have what is called the used jewelry sale. And that's our big fundraiser. But, we will get up to, I don't know, maybe 2,000 people in through the doors buying used jewelry. Now, we're always looking for used jewelry, whether it's broken or not, because our fantastic volunteers will take broken jewelry and fix it, take pieces and put it in with another piece that's broken. So the jewelry sale is a big event, and it's our fundraiser.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. You've got a lot going on. You've also got something about the Day of the Dead, right?
Yeah, that was something that we started last year. It was suggested by one of our neighboring businesses there. It was sponsored initially by St. Paul's Episcopal Church. Reverend Gene contacted the Historical Society and the adjacent business saying, hey, would you be interested in putting a program together for Day of the Dead or Dias los Muertos? And we said, well, let's think about that. The challenge we have here in Michigan is that that's November 2nd, and you can't always count on weather to be very cooperative. So anyways, this past November 2nd, it was just an awesome day. And so we had all kind of games and face painting for children and, making chalk designs on the sidewalk, down at the AMP. We had several cemetery tours where we talked about, people that were buried there, and the tours, one tour was 40 people and another tour was 20 people. Had a music group there, and it was just a wonderful day, and a wonderful day accented by wonderful weather. So we're going to go with it again for this year, and that's always November 2nd, which is a Sunday this year.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That ought to be a lot of fun.
It is. You get I forget the name of the type of music, but you have 3 or 4 Latin type people, playing guitars and drums and different things, and it's just a fun time. And the neighboring business is our local food place that caters to, it's like the best taco place in the community.
Oh,
And so they make food and sell the food and that, and people have a very good time.
I love
And
tacos at festivals. They're just great.
Yeah, and it's a 1-day festival. This coming year, it's going to be from 1 till 5, because this year, since it's Sunday here in Michigan, we'll be switching from daylight savings time to Eastern Standard Time the previous Saturday night. So it'll be getting dark if we had to go any later than that. So that's why we're going from 1 to 5. But it was a really fun time.
Okay. What are some noteworthy visitor experiences or testimonials that you think highlight the impact of your organization?
So within the Old Village Cemetery, as we mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of work in there restoring broken headstones and that. And the gratitude of the community is shared all the time. But not only the gratitude of the community, the gratitude of the families who have loved ones buried there, because their headstones were a disgrace before. It was not respectful. Today is very respectful, and people are very tickled that their headstones have been repaired. And so, they have sent us kudos. They've sent kudos to the city manager, and they've also attached some checks to us for our work, for continuing the work in there, so that we continue to maintain that cemetery and make it look very nice. They learn about that on Facebook as one of the prime areas, because I post a lot of things on Facebook, and with photos, there's always history.
Yeah.
I'm not a person who believes in just throwing a photo up without giving you the rest of the story. So from those folks, also the folks that come for Santa, there's some people that come for Santa that are not well off financially, but the process and the price is right. And you know what? Those people are tickled to bring their children there, get pictures with Santa, park for free, make ornaments for free, see Santa for free, and have a great afternoon. And they are very grateful, and they share that with us, telling us about it all the time. So we're very happy for that we are able to hit that part of the community also.
That's fantastic work you're doing. Just fantastic.
I haven't talked about the silhouettes yet, but this program is called the Brighton Victorian Silhouettes, and this was instituted in 2017, which was Brighton's 150th anniversary. And if you can imagine a life-size character that's two-dimensional, so it's basically a big board, signboard, and it's cut out in the silhouette of a person, and on one face is the colorful graphics of that person and what they might have looked like or what they may have been doing back in the 1860s to the 1920s.
Cool.
And so there are 15 of these that we put up every June around the mill pond in the downtown Brighton. And each one of these silhouettes has a biography board that tells the story. And these biography boards are written for a level of a child. Brighton has a whole lot of art around its community, but there's nothing really for children. So we figure this is a good way we can get this cute looking man or woman out there, or cow. I'll tell you about a cow in a moment. And children can read it with their parents. We have a coloring book to go with it where they can color these silhouettes. They receive crayons and pictures and that. And so that's very popular, and it goes up in June, comes down usually the end of October. But I want to mention one unique silhouette. In the cemetery, we have 2 cows. And I always tell people, you need to go in the cemetery and learn why there's 2 silhouettes of a black and white cow and a silhouette of a brown cow.
I'm wondering myself.
Well, back in the early days, people used to have a cow for their milk. You didn't have grocery stores per se, especially, milk. You could have a cow and just, get the milk from the cow for free, kind of. Well, there were no rules and regulations that people at least adhered to about keeping the cows contained because, people didn't have lawns. That was not something that you would see in an older home was a lawn because that was a wasted expense, more or less. So anyways, these cows are out on the prowl looking for green grass. Where they always ended up was in the cemetery because the cemetery in the old days, grass was never cut. So you always had lush grass in the cemetery. You had the mature trees keeping it nice. So the cows would head to the cemetery. Well, there was a person in town who was named the pound master. And that person's job was to collect these animals that were running wild and take them to the pound. And so these cows would be taken to the pound, which was located, a block away. And the owners would have to pay, I don't know, 50 cents, $1, whatever, to get their animal back. And the lesson, hopefully, was that those animals never be walking the streets again. So anyways, we have a story up in the cemetery about these cows and why they're there and the two different cows, because one's a milk cow, one's a beef cow. And so kids are always intrigued by that. And not only the kids, but the parents also.
Oh, yeah, that was a good way to maintain the cemetery, too, to keep the grass in check.
Yeah, only it wasn't appreciated because cows left behind other things.
Yes, true. That's so true. Now, you have the CoBACH Center where you do exhibits. What exhibits are currently open to the public, and what themes or stories do they explore?
I don't know if I said this earlier or not, but a lot of times when we have exhibits at CoBACH Center, we bring in items from people within the community. CoBACH Center is open for free, and it's typically, open in the evenings because it's all volunteers. We are open Saturday from 11 to 5 and Sunday from 2 to 5. The Island Lake exhibit that is just opening up in the next week or so. Cool. As we get things fully positioned there and telling the story of Island Lake, because Island Lake, as I mentioned earlier, has a very colorful history of a lot of things going on over there. And a lot of people don't know everything about this. I mean, there's the story of Babe Ruth being over there. Babe Ruth, as everybody knows, was the famous slugger from the Yankees. And when the Yankees would come to Detroit to play the Tigers, Babe Ruth was a person that seemed to like to enjoy things. So when he was not hitting the baseball, he was out enjoying life. And one of the places where he would come to enjoy life was at Island Lake, Michigan. Apparently, he had some friends out here, and they would party and have a good time. And so, one of the times that I remember reading about is that Babe Ruth, they had a dinner party in Detroit. He didn't show up. Why didn't he show up? Because he was out partying with his friends at Island Lake, Michigan. So Babe Ruth got some other notoriety because, Island Lake has a lot of fishing going on there. Well, in order to fish, you have to have a license to be legal. Well, Babe Ruth got caught fishing without a license, and they threatened to haul him to jail in the town west of Brighton called Howell. And they decided to release him on his recognizance and said that the next time you come into town, you need to come by and pay your fine for fishing without a license. And so I guess he was happy to do that. So that's kind of a cool little story. And plus, when he would visit Island Lake, he would hit baseballs out into the water where all the kids would go and collect the baseballs getting, hit from the big guy.
Oh, that's
so
great.
Island Lake. I had mentioned previously that one of the things of Island Lake was that it had a lot of ice houses out there. So ice harvesting was real big there, and so people would come out and they would live in one particular boarding house, and then they would cut ice for maybe 6 weeks, and they would fill up all these ice houses, and these ice houses were connected with a railroad spur, which is a side track that came to the ice houses where the ice would be transferred and then taken into Detroit when needed. So Island Lake was pretty cool place. Brighton had a main man called Tom S. Leith, and I would classify him as a mover and a shaker. And he started off in Brighton with what was called the Michigan Military Academy. And this military academy was for high school boys. and they received training, and they had a football team. Well, they started off in Brighton about 1916, and then they moved over to Island Lake when this Mr. Tom Leith had a dormitory built in that, right on the overlooking the lake, for these boys to grow up and mature there, and they would, move on to the University of Michigan or other places. And so this was kind of a prep school that he had started, the Michigan Military Academy in Brighton. Very unique man with a lot of stories.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jim, but it's time for us to take a break for a few minutes.
Time for a short break and to catch our breath.
Listeners, we'll be right back after these important messages about becoming a member of the Brighton Area Historical Society. If I lived in the Brighton area or Livingston County, or if I had ancestors from the area regardless of where I lived, I definitely want to support this historical society.
Are you passionate about history? Do you want to make a real difference in your community? Then listen up, because the Brighton Area Historical Society needs you. Nestled in the heart of Brighton, Michigan, this incredible organization is dedicated to preserving the rich stories, artifacts, and heritage of the Brighton area. But to keep history alive, they need volunteers like you to lend a hand. Whether you're an organizer, a people person, educator, a storyteller, a builder, carpenter, electrician, a tech-savvy wizard, or just someone with a love for history and a little bit of time, there's a place for you at the Brighton Area Historical Society. Volunteers help with everything from scanning artifacts and researching local history to planning events and greeting visitors at the CoBACH Center on Main Street. Do you want to work behind scenes? Help curate exhibits at the CoBACH Center or assist with historical preservation at the headquarters in the Lyon one-room schoolhouse, or help with operations at the Old Village Cemetery. Love meeting new people? Join the friendly team of event volunteers and share Brighton's fascinating past with visitors from near and far. By volunteering, you won't just be contributing to your community. You'll be part of a team that celebrates the spirit of Brighton, unites generations, and inspires curiosity in history lovers of all ages. Ready to step into the past and help shape the future? Visit their website at brightonareahistorical.com, email them at info@brightonareahistorical.com, or give them a call at 810-250-7276. Follow them on Facebook at Brighton Area Historical Society to see all the amazing work you could be a part of.
You can also drop by the CoBACH Center at 202 West Main Street or the Lyon School at 11455 Buno Road, Brighton, Michigan, 48114, or help with operations at the Old Village Cemetery located at 200 West St. Paul Street. The Brighton Area Historical Society is waiting for you to help make history come alive. So don't wait, join today, and leave your mark on Brighton's legacy.
The Brighton Area Historical Society, where history meets heart and every volunteer makes a difference.
If you need a sewing machine, call Star Sewing Machine. Yes, that's the thing to do. So if you like to sew, call 3870. Star Sewing Machine, Star Sewing Machine. That's the thing to do. Hooray! if you need a sewing machine, call Star Sewing Machine. Yes, that's the thing to do. So if you like to sew, call 3870 Star Sewing Machine. Star Sewing Machine, that's the thing to do. Hooray!
9 out of 10 family historians agree Preservation Oaks is the best podcast on the internet.
Ever since I introduced Jim to Preservation Oaks, he's been begging for a second helping of history.
Hey there, folks. It's your friendly neighborhood history guru. And for a limited time only, tune into Preservation Oaks and snag our recipe of the week for smoked octopus and turnips. It's the secret, old-fashioned method that seals in all the juices. Trust me, even those parts you never thought were edible will surprise you. Just close your eyes if you have to. Yes, Preservation Oaks isn't just your go-to for historical tidbits. We're also your one-stop shop for octopus and turnip. Whether you're whipping up something as fancy and complicated as octopus on the half shell or keeping it down home with good old octopus on a stick, our recipes have got you covered. With us, you can serve up a hearty dose of octopus and history every single night.
Preservation Oaks, because who needs anything else for excitement when you've got history and octopus?
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, and we're here today with Jim Vichich from the Brighton Area Historical Society located in Brighton, Michigan. Let's pick up where we left off. I'm learning a lot, Jim. Thank you, and welcome back.
Hey, thanks, John. Let's dive deeper into the Brighton Area Historical Society.
Jim, could you describe a few key artifacts or records that have been donated and how they contribute to the richness of your collection?
That's a really neat question because, we're always looking for artifacts from people. And we had one member, her name is Mary Ann Comiskey. She had a collection of what are called real picture postcards. And, these aren't postcards like you see today, but these were actual photographs that were put on postcards back in the 1905 to 1920 period. And people would use these when they went on vacation to just send information because there weren't telephones really at that time. So people would put these photographs on cards and then people would buy them and send them to their family. Well, Brighton, because I always kind of been a little resort style town because one of the things that makes Brighton and its area unique is the wide variety of lakes. Again, this area was settled by glaciers 10,000 years ago. And consequently, we have a whole lot of lakes that have been left behind because of the glaciers. And so in the 1880s, people started coming to Brighton and the area, Island Lake and other areas, because of these lakes. They wanted to get away from the city. Well, the people looking to make money were the photographers. They thought, hey, if we take pictures, we got to take pictures where people are visiting. So the photographers would set up in Brighton and neighboring areas and take pictures of everything. People, buildings, kids doing things. And then they would sell these images to the guests, to the visitors. So there were a lot of postcards, real picture postcards made of Brighton in the 1905-1920 period of time because of the visiting guests and the visiting photographers. Well, this lady, Mary Ann Comiskey, she collected them. And they're not cheap. They're kind of expensive. And she has such a collection of postcards of the lakes of the area as well as of Brighton. And so she said, Jim, if there's any way that I can help you with these picture postcards, let me know. I said, you know what? I would like to scan those so that we can use them for advertising and other things. And she said, sure, you're welcome to do that. So one Christmas, I scanned, I don't know, it must have been 500 postcards from her. And we use these postcards today because she donated the images to us. She would have liked to donate the postcards to us, but some members of her family decided that they would rather use the postcards. So anyways, we have the images, and we use those images for Facebook. We use those images to sell to restaurants and businesses. For example, if a new restaurant comes into the area, we will contact them, see if they're interested in getting any old photos of Brighton that are cool looking. And frequently they do. And, we would charge $10 for an image. And it would be their responsibility then to take that image and get it processed into a photo, into wallpaper, whatever they wanted to do with it. So we were very grateful to Mrs. Comiskey for this donation of picture postcards showing our area at a time when there was not photography available to the general public.
Very cool. Thank you very much. How is your organization handling the digitization of records and photographs to ensure they remain accessible in the future?
Yeah, that's kind of $1 million question with historical societies and libraries. With the availability of the internet that now allows people to sit in the comfort of their home and learn about the world from their easy chair. They don't have to go to the library. They don't have to go to the historical society. And that creates the challenge of how do these businesses stay afloat? So what we are dealing with is that we're doing digitization. We've started on digitization in 2006, 2007 from a donation by one of our members, Jason Huntley with Archer Huntley Financial. They gave us a computer, they gave us a scanner, they gave us a monitor and said, start taking care of those pictures. You should have had this done already. He said, well, thank you. We will work on it. So that's the process that we've worked on since that point in time. However, what we've not done is to digitize the records, some of the other records that we have. Now, our historical society is, I would call, more of a paper, ephemera historical society. We have a lot of old records, a lot of old maps. And so we're just starting the process with software that we just purchased last September to doing that. And needless to say, it takes a lot of time. It takes time to get organized. And so that is something that we're working on, is trying to get volunteers to do this. Well, when you're dealing with getting volunteers, it's tough to get your schedules to coincide. Typically for us, Thursday morning is our day of work at the Lyon schoolhouse, where we have our archive room and where we do the scanning in that. Well, not everybody's schedule fits into that. And so we're trying to learn and deal with that as to how we can become more effective to getting other people at other times. Realizing that if you're going to have somebody coming into your facility at another time, that person has to be supervised. We're just not allowing the general public to come in and potentially mess with the computers or take anything. So there has to be some supervision there.
And training, huh?
So we're trying to deal with that. But also, if we have everything available online, then who's going to come to the archive room of the Historical Society?
Right.
Maybe we would be selective in only putting certain things online. Maybe we would put thumbnail images online where you would, if you wanted to see the original, you got to come and take a look at it. And that is the same problem that the library is having as far as too much material available online that potentially cuts down on their visitors and visitors is funding. And that's no different than the big box stores today that are closing up stores because everybody's shopping online. So, yeah, it's a serious problem. I'm not sure how we're going to handle it best, but we're working on that. We're just getting going with the past perfect software because we have been hemming and hawing on purchasing that for a number of years. And basically because if we bought it, we don't have people to do it.
Right.
So let's not buy it and just have it sitting here. So I guess it's sufficient to say that we've have a critical mass of people, we think, that can input data now and input that information.
Are you a member of the Michigan Association of Museums?
Well, the Historical Society is, and in fact, one of our board members is the president of that group.
I wonder how they're advising people to handle this digitization issue with trying to ensure that you've got funding to do this and, in perpetuity, right?
Yeah, that's a discussion for probably a special meeting of the board.
Yeah.
Because this is it's a real problem that everybody has. I mean, I talked to other people at other historical societies, and they're kind of caught in a trick bag as to which way to go. How do we want to do this?
Yeah.
Are we putting ourselves out of business? So yeah, those are all real life issues.
All right. Thank you for that. Maybe somebody will write in and to preservationoaks@gmail.com and let us know how they're doing things. That would help a lot, and I can get that out to people.
And I have a sneaking suspicion that big organizations have a handle on it. Big, well-funded organizations probably have a better handle on it than, a small organization like us.
Right.
I don't know. That's just my gut feeling on that.
Yeah. I want to go to describing your organization's funding model and any financial targets you hope to reach in 2025. Can you talk to that?
Well, from a president's perspective, the funding the funding model that is reality is that we need to have greater income than expenses. And that's kind of the model of every household and everything. But for us, we have memberships and we have sponsorships. We have our annual used jewelry sale that gets us some very good funds. It would be great if we had people to write grants. That's not something that we've been successful with yet. But memberships and sponsorships is kind of what keeps us afloat. And that's what we do from November to January, is to make sure that we contact all our former members or existing members and try to get them to ante up for another year.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing right now. And so far, we're behind a little bit. And, when we're behind, then that generally requires a little more what I call a firsthand visit or contact. So, that's something I'll probably be following up with some of these folks in that.
Okay. You also, I was on your website, and you also have a gift shop where you sell items and books.
Yeah, we have a big coffee table type book that one of our board members, who was a retired teacher, put together. She researched the old Brighton Argus newspapers for 10 years and got all this information and facts together and wrote this book. It's called From Settlement to City, Brighton, 1832 to 1845. And her name is Carol McMacken. And that book has close to 500 pages, hardbound, and at least 300 photos in it. And that's a big time book. That's our $65 book. Of course, if you're a member, you get a discount on that. We also have a Images of America book called The Brighton Area. And this is a book that we did back in about maybe 2012 or so, and has, close to 200 pages and multiple pictures on a page with a description telling what the building is, where it's at, what it is today. And that's a very popular one because it's a $20 softcover book that's just very simple and very easy to read. So that's a real winner.
You were talking about membership. How much is a membership to the society?
Well, we have all different kinds. We have student memberships for $5. Again, purpose of a student membership is trying to get, kids involved, get them interested. There's an individual membership for $20, and for a family it's $30. And there's no benefit between a $20 and a $30 donation other than you're helping with the cause. You're helping with the cause of preservation. You're helping this organization preserve our cemetery. You're helping the organization put on presentations that talks about our past. We have a $50 patron membership, which would be for somebody that was maybe felt that they could do a little bit more than just a individual or a family. So that patron is $50. And then businesses and professionals, we have a $75 membership. And what a $75 membership will get you, in addition to the monthly newsletter and that, is that when I post things on Facebook, I every once in a while put on the members of the business and professional network. So it'll be a picture of their building, with their name in that. And so we do that. That's $75. And our last one is the $500 lifetime.
Nice.
And we're very blessed to have a lot of lifetimes, but there's a detriment with having so many lifetimes, is that you get that money up front, and then that just keeps going to perpetuity. And, you still have expenses and newsletters and everything else. And so what happens is that, it gets a little tougher down the road when you have all these life members. So I have sent out letters to some of our lifetime members asking if they'd be able to, take a look at, maybe helping out again. So that's something that we do. The different type of fundraising we have is what's called a sponsorship. And we have this because a couple of businesses asked us about having it. And I thought, okay, well, if there's a need from a business to have a sponsorship, we can help them with that need. So we have a platinum sponsorship for $1,000,
okay,
a gold sponsorship for $500, silver for $250, and bronze for $100. And these folks will receive a brass tag on a board at the CoBACH Center and at the Lyon School, showing that they are a sponsor of a certain level for, in this case, 2025. So, we have those, and some businesses anting up for those, and we're very thankful for it.
That's very cool. I understood that you and your team have just started a history group at the local high school.
Yeah, our board member, Nancy Fredenberg, she's an alumna of Brighton High School. And she says, I always wanted to start this history club. They have all kind of clubs at the high school. They should have a history club. And, Nancy just retired recently. And so as a retiree, she has a little more time on her hands than she did when she was in the working world. So that's something new that just started at the end of this last year. And we'll be going, I guess, full bore on it this coming fall, trying to get kids signed up for it. So there's always a certain number of kids that are involved with local history. They want to know. And so this is a program that will be a winner from Nancy's perspective, and I think it'll be very good for us.
Well, you're starting the history group. You got the $5 student membership. You've told us about the third graders that come to the Lyon School. So you're doing that and trying to educate them each year. And you also do something with honor students at the cemetery.
Well, first of all, at the Lyon School, and this program hasn't gotten really back off the shelf since COVID. But before COVID, we would have probably anywhere from 3 to 7 elementary schools that would come in at typically the end of the year, where the children would have a country school experience. And one of the objectives in the curriculum for the state of Michigan for third graders is community. So they would come to the school and experience a one-room schoolhouse. And, I would, give them an interesting chat on what the schoolhouse was like, what kids had to do, what the teacher had to do. And it was always very enjoyable. And kids appreciated that. On the other side is that we're dealing with high school kids from Brighton High School, from Cheryl Stockwell Preparatory Academy, as well as from Heartland High School. And we're dealing with the honor societies in working in the cemeteries and helping to clean up the cemeteries. And with that, it comes appreciation with these names and the people that lived here. And, honor society kids are generally pretty good kids. And, they have questions and they work really hard. And
Yeah.
so this new cemetery that we're starting off at the spring, we had the Heartland High School Honor Society there for a session to clean it up. And, they worked hard and did a nice job. And we're hoping to continue that, to make that a spring and fall adventure for the Honor Society kids, because they have to put in so many hours of community service in that program. So it benefits everybody.
Plus, some of their surnames are probably some of the same that are in the cemetery.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that, because I can't speak to Heartland because that's the adjacent community, but for Brighton, that's definitely true, because you have names in the cemetery that have been around for years and continue to fill up the schools in that. And a lot of those kids, a lot of those students don't know the depth of their family involvement in the community. So sometimes I put on presentations at the high school, for a history class, and it's always interesting, some of the responses and questions that you get. I mean, to me, that's the greatest privilege in life, is being able to teach those young kids, because you have a young mind that you're working with, and it is a real privilege. I love my, 18 years of teaching. It was wonderful.
I also was reading that the Historical Society has a scholarship program.
Yeah, the scholarship that we have has been around since one of our members passed away. We had a member, Larry Lawrence, who was very involved with history. And what was unusual, he was very involved with history as a young man. He would be one of those guys that would listen to the old timers talk about the good old days. And he remembered that. And so he continued that interest, and he started a business. It was called Lawrence Auto Body, and it still exists today. It was started in 1977. Larry passed away 5 years ago. But in his memory, a scholarship was started by friends, by his wife, by his son Mike, who now runs the business. And so every year we have a scholarship, and the scholarship now is $2,500. And it goes for a trade scholarship, is what we're looking for. Larry, as a bump man for a body shop, he felt strongly for encouraging the skilled trades or other trades.
Yep.
And so that's one of them that kids have to apply. They can apply online. They can scan a QR code, get all the information. And, the deadline for that typically has been the end of March. But that is a cool scholarship, and we're always looking for interested people for applying to that. The Larry Lawrence Scholarship Fund is a key thing, and we get donations for that, and we hope to continue going forward with that. People are supporting it, but it's all in memory of our fellow board member and veteran, Larry Lawrence, a genuine good guy in the community.
You guys are doing so much to bring in young talent and young people. It's just great to see. Now, I want to talk about volunteers for a second. Volunteers are the lifeblood of any historical society. How can community members participate as volunteers, and what types of roles or projects are open to them?
That's a good question, and it needs a good reflective answer on that. But volunteers are the lifeblood. You're exactly correct. Without volunteers, you don't have anything. When you're dealing with nonprofits and that. So right now, we kind of advertise for volunteers that want to work at the Lyon School doing scanning. We've gotten a lot of people for our new cemetery that we're starting work on. I posted a notice in the Brighton Township quarterly newsletter saying that we're going to be starting this project at the Pleasant Valley Cemetery of restoring the cemetery and restoring the headstones.
Oh, a new one.
Well,
cool.
Yeah, what's most amazing is that I got 11 responses. And so we've had several get-togethers last fall at the Pleasant Valley Cemetery, because part of the work is kind of doing a survey of the cemetery to see what we have there as far as the state of the various headstones, the number broken, number that are sunk, all that. So we started that, and also identifying the veterans' grave sites, getting the markers up for Veterans Day was important. That's a real strong thing for us, is getting the flags up for the veterans at both Old Village Cemetery and now Pleasant Valley Cemetery. So we've gotten a good supply for over at Pleasant Valley Cemetery, but we're setting them up as far as making sure they know. They say, well, can I come an hour and then leave? I said, absolutely. You're our volunteer, whatever works for you, we appreciate your support. And so we're looking forward to kicking that off, next June with Pleasant Valley Cemetery. The key thing is getting volunteers, getting the word out that we need people. And, people like to help. Brighton has a lot of people that like to help.
All right, I'd like to provide listeners with the contact information for the organization once again. Their website is brightonareahistorical.com. You can find them on Facebook at Brighton Area Historical Society. The phone number is 810-250-7276. Their email is info@brightonareahistorical.com. You can send them a letter at P.O. Box 481, Brighton, Michigan 48116. The headquarters is the Lyon one-room schoolhouse. That's Lyon one-room schoolhouse at 11455 Buno Road, Brighton, Michigan 48114. They have an exhibit space at the CoBACH Center. CoBACH is CoBACH. That stands for City of Brighton Arts, Culture, and History Center at 202 West Main Street, Brighton, Michigan 48116. And their outdoor museum of history is the Old Village Cemetery at 200 West St. Paul Street, Brighton, Michigan 48116. And I hope you all stop by that cemetery to take a look at the wonderful work that's been done there.
Yeah, thanks for the compliments on that, Sean, as well as the pitch on that, because people are totally surprised when they go there and very impressed.
I got to ask you, what kinds of information and resources can visitors find on your website?
Oh, on our website, we have lots of good stuff. We have page 4 articles, which are research articles on people, on buildings, on sites, on streets that have been done over the last 40 years. Well, those page 4 articles are on our website. And so you would go to the website and you would go to where it says Trail Tales, and you would look through that. And you can also type in a word, and it'll bring back to you what years and months you would find that name in a page 4 article. So page 4 articles are there. We also have some really nice old PDF plat maps. These would be like county maps of the townships of Livingston. And so there are maps from 1859 of all the townships, 1875, 1895, and 1915. And these are all just sharp quality maps where people can look and see what was located where their home was before.
Oh, cool.
Another thing that's on our website are what are called Sanborn maps. Sanborn maps are fire insurance maps that were put out by the Sanborn Company, who was selling, I guess, underwriting for fire insurance. And so they would draw a map up of the downtown. It doesn't go into the rural area. It's strictly downtown where the buildings are. And they put information on there all about that building. 1 story, 2 story. Is it a porch? Is it block? Is it wood? It has colors on there. Is it a residence? Is it a bar? Is it a saloon? Tremendous information. So we have Sanborn maps for Brighton from 1893, 1899, 1910, 1923, and 1928. There's some maps from 1938, but those are still covered by copyright law, so we don't have those on our website. However, we do have those available to look at in the archive room at the Lyon Schoolhouse.
Very cool. Wow, a lot of good stuff on the website. Very cool. I hope everybody checks it out. Jim, I'm so grateful for your time and insight. It's been fascinating to hear about the dedication and heart you all put into serving your members and the community. It looks like you all have a lot of fun. Meeting you has been a real highlight. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, I appreciate it. And I got a couple comments I'd like to share. I'd like to say thank you to the Brighton community. The support from the community has grown tremendously. and strengthened our story of the people that preceded us. Thank you to the Brighton Area Historical Society Board of Directors for everything you do. Your donation of time and love of Brighton is seen in all endeavors. Thank you to our members, sponsors, and volunteers, the Brighton Area Historical Society. Your donations and assistance help make Brighton an awesome town to live in and raise a family. Thank you to Sean and Preservation Oaks for their very successful podcasts that focus on memories, sharing information, and preserving the past. Thank you for giving the Brighton Area Historical Society a microphone to the world. Historical societies, preservation groups, and genealogical societies need to share this platform with their stories. We all need to get the word out on Preservation Oaks. Our success as organizations requires positive PR and sharing information. Let's all share the word. Preservation Oaks and Sean Thomas are awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. And with that, we'll end our time with our guest, President Jim Vichich of the Brighton Historical Society in Brighton, Michigan. Listeners, please stay tuned for my comments and wrap-up, which is coming up next. Hey, welcome back. As we conclude this interesting episode of Preservation Oaks, I'd like to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to our guest, Mr. Jim Vichich, President of the Brighton Area Historical Society located in Brighton, Michigan. Jim's sincerity, dedication, and passion for preserving the rich history of Brighton and its surrounding areas are truly inspiring. His intelligence, knowledge, and capability make him an exceptional leader, and we feel fortunate to have had the opportunity to learn about Brighton and Michigan from him. Throughout our conversation, Jim shared fascinating stories about the unique beauty and value of Brighton's history, highlighting its significance to our country. We're grateful for his willingness to share his expertise with us and for introducing us to the wonderful work being done by the Brighton Area Historical Society in Livingston County. The Society's efforts to preserve and promote the area's history are a testament to the power of community-driven initiatives. One of the most impressive aspects of Jim's work is the restoration of the Old Village Cemetery, a project that showcases his team's commitment to honoring the past while engaging with the present. The meticulous care and attention devoted to restoring broken headstones and preserving the cemetery's dignity are a remarkable example of community service. The impact of this project extends beyond mere preservation. It also serves as a catalyst for educating younger generations about the importance of their heritage. As we reflect on our conversation with Jim, it becomes clear that his love for educating young people is genuine and far-reaching. He's implemented various initiatives at the Society aimed at attracting younger members and fostering a deeper appreciation for history among them. From student memberships to interactive exhibits and programs tailored specifically for children, Jim's approach is inclusive and forward-thinking. This episode was also filled with captivating human interest stories that added depth and warmth to our discussion. From tales of ice harvesting on Island Lake to anecdotes about Babe Ruth's adventures in Brighton, each story highlighted the area's unique character and charm. If you're interested in learning more about or supporting their efforts, please visit their website at www.brightonareahistorical.com. or find them on Facebook at Brighton Area Historical Society. You can also reach out by phone at 810-250-7276 or email info@brightonareahistorical.com. For those who prefer traditional mail, they can be reached at P.O. Box 481, Brighton, Michigan 48116. Their headquarters is located in the historic Lyon one-room schoolhouse, located at 11455 Buno Road. That's Buno, Buno Road. While their exhibit space is at the CoBACH Center, situated at 202 West Main Street. Lastly, don't forget what Jim refers to as the Outdoor Museum of History, which is the Old Village Cemetery, where one may experience the results of 12 years of volunteer work by the Society. The Brighton Area Historical Society has a pressing need for volunteers who can contribute their time and skills, particularly those able to write grants in support of the organization's endeavors. Please consider joining as a valued member. Your assistance will enable them to continue doing a fantastic job serving the local community. In closing, I'd like to express my thanks once again to Jim Vichich for taking time to share stories, insights, and wisdom. We appreciate everything the Society does for the community. Your tireless work ensures that the vibrant legacy of the Historical Society endures. Now, if questions occur to you and you'd like more information, please connect with the Society via the contact information provided. If you're a listener in the area the organization serves and you're not already a member, please consider joining them and lending your support to this worthwhile society. I hope this information helps the audience understand how valuable the Society is to the community and what kinds of excellent services they have to offer their members and the public. You know, I think you'd agree with me. The Brighton Area Historical Society is truly one of our nation's preservation oaks. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Cymbalbird, Stereo Color, Twisterium, Neotunes, Ambient Background, Orange Production, Simon Lang, Diva Production Music, and Scott Holmes. Microstream Radio is a registered trademark. You can visit us at www.microstreamradio.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by Microstream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, reproduced, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of Microstream Radio. Hopefully you found today's episode useful, informative, and thought-provoking. If so, please like, comment, and subscribe. Remember that being free means being free to be curious, and that historical and genealogical societies and museums allow us to discover the past, be free to explore, where curiosity opens every door. Thanks to everybody for listening. Stay curious out there and keep exploring the incredible stories that shape our world. This is Sean Radcliff. We'll see you all next time on Preservation Oaks, and until then, keep on giving and keep on living the good life.